Welcome to the Middle School Cafe podcast, where we're serving up fresh strategies and solutions for ELA teachers just like you. Join us as we explore proven methods to bridge the achievement gap and help every student reach their full potential. Whether you're a veteran teacher or just starting out, grab a cup of coffee and a notepad and let's get started. Here's your host, Carolyn Wall.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I just got back from spring break, and you know how that is. You come back feeling a little refreshed, maybe a little bit more rested, but also jumping right back into everything that's waiting for you. And this time of year always feels a little chaotic. We're close enough to the end of the year that we can see it, but there's still a lot of learning left to do. I'm also thinking about my students who are in their final term of student teaching. This is such a big moment for them, and I'm excited to watch them step into their classrooms and really take ownership of their teaching. At the same time, I know what many of you are walking back into. State testing is right around the corner, and that alone shifts the energy in a classroom. Schedules change, routines get interrupted, and there's just a different kind of pressure in the air. And then there's the day-to-day reality. Students come back from break a little more talkative, a little less focused, and if we're being honest, teachers are tired too. So if you're noticing that your students' reading stamina isn't quite where it was before break, that's normal. It's just part of the rhythm of the school year. And even though we're getting closer to the end of the year, there's still a lot of meaningful learning that needs to happen. The habits students are building right now really do matter, especially this time of year. This is when you start to see some students trying to coast to the end or checking out a little after spring break. And this is where we can step in and help bring that focus back. And with state testing and end-of-year assessments coming up, stamina plays a big role. It's not just about reading ability, it's also about focus, perseverance, and being able to stay engaged with a text long enough to think through it and respond. It can be really tempting to jump right back into those longer independent reading blocks and expect students to pick up exactly where they left off. But the reality is, they've had a break. In some cases, a full week, sometimes even 2 weeks. And we wouldn't expect students to jump back in after winter break. We know there's always a bit of a reset that has to happen. After winter break, we take time to revisit routines. We model expectations again, we give students a little more structure, a little more support, and we ease them back into longer stretches of reading. Spring break really isn't any different. So instead of jumping right back into those long stretches of reading, this is a really good time to rebuild those expectations and ease back into reading in smaller, more supported ways, just like we did at the beginning of the year. You're probably already seeing signs that stamina is slipping. When stamina starts to slip, it doesn't always look like students refusing to read. Sometimes it looks like students staring at the page, but not really processing anything. It looks like rereading the same line over and over without moving forward. It looks like rushing through just to say they're done. You might notice more distractions, more side conversations, or questions like, why do we have to do this? And that's really our signal. Not that students can't do it, but that they've lost the rhythm a little bit. And when that happens, we don't push harder. We just reset, refocus, and build it back up. When we take the time to rebuild instead of rushing it, we get better results. This is also the time of year where a lot of students hit a wall. You might hear students say things like they just can't do it anymore, or you notice them having a harder time staying focused during reading. Some students start to check out. They figure that there's only a couple months left and they can just coast to the end. That mindset doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes from mental fatigue, from a break in routine, and from the shift in energy that happens this time of year. I know this time of year can feel heavy. There's a lot coming at you, and it can feel like you should be doing more, trying more, or changing things to get better results. But you don't have to do more. This is the time to reestablish expectations, revisit routines that have already worked, and build consistency back into your classroom. You've already taught your students how to read, how to think, and how to engage with texts. Those skills didn't disappear. They just need support getting back into the rhythm. And when we approach it that way, it feels a lot more manageable for both us and our students. We're not trying to do more right now. We're just being more purposeful with what we're already doing. We're reestablishing routines and building on the small pieces we've already put in place throughout the year. And this is where we can really lean into discussion as part of that process. Because students want to talk. They want to share what they're thinking, they want to respond to each other, and they want to be part of the conversation. And when they know that discussion is coming, they're much more likely to stay engaged with the reading. They're paying attention, they're looking for something to say, and they're thinking about the text as they go. So it's not about tricking them into reading, it's about being intentional. We're giving them a reason to stay connected to the text. And that's what helps us reset expectations and start building stamina back up. Discussion gives students a way back into the reading without it feeling overwhelming. When students talk about what they're reading, they're processing it in real time. They're putting their thinking into words, and that alone strengthens their understanding. And I think that matters because when stamina starts to slip, what we're really seeing is students losing their connection to the text. They're reading the words, but they're not always holding on to the meaning. They're not sure what matters, what to pay attention to, or if they're even understanding it the right way. And discussion helps slow that down. It gives students a chance to stop, think, and make sense of what they've read before moving on. It gives them a place to try out an idea, hear another perspective, or realize, okay, I'm on the right track here. That's exactly what they need to keep going instead of checking out or rushing through it. Students don't usually disengage because they just don't want to read. More often, they disengage when it starts to feel like too much work without enough payoff. Discussion can help bridge that gap. One of the biggest pieces here is confidence. When students feel like they understand even a small part of what they're reading, they're much more likely to stick with it. If they are understanding, it just feels easier. If a student can read something, talk about it, and realize, I actually do have something to say here, that changes their willingness to keep going. That confidence builds momentum, and that momentum is what helps rebuild stamina. I also think this matters because discussion gives students a purpose to read. If they know they're going to be asked to respond, or share an idea, or build on someone else's thinking, they read differently. That also increases stamina because they are being intentional about their reading. They're not just trying to get through the page. They're looking for something to say, something to notice, something to bring to the conversation. Instead of reading just to finish, they're reading to think and respond. And that naturally supports stamina because they're more engaged in what they're doing. This is actually one of the advantages of being at this point in the year. We know our students. We know who needs more structure, who benefits from talking things out, who needs more think time, and which prompts actually get students to respond. We know which classes need tighter routines and which ones can handle a little more flexibility. We're not guessing. We can tailor what we're doing to meet the needs of our students. We can keep discussions shorter if a class tends to lose focus. We can add writing before talking if students need more processing time. We can pair students intentionally if some need stronger support. So instead of trying something brand new, we take what has already worked and lean into it with more intention. It's not about adding more strategies. It's about being strategic with what we've already taught. And that's really the message I want to keep coming back to. You are not starting over. You're rebuilding. All of that work you've put in this year, it's still there. Your students still have those skills. We're just helping them reconnect with them and build that stamina back up. There are some strategies you're probably already using that are tried and true and work really well with your class. Think about your turn and talks. Before students even start reading, let them know they're going to be talking. Give them a purpose for reading. You might say, be ready to explain your thinking and point to a specific part of the text, or be ready to share what you noticed and why it matters. Then give them time to read. And just as important, give them a moment to think before they talk. That think time is crucial. Even 10 or 15 seconds can make a big difference because it gives more students a chance to come up with something to say. And when you give them that time to think, you'll start to hear it in their conversations. Instead of one-word answers, students are explaining their thinking. They're referencing the text. They're building on ideas. That small shift changes the level of the conversation, and it also helps students stay engaged with the text longer, which is what helps to rebuild stamina. We're not just having students talk, we're giving them a reason to stay connected to the reading. Another tried and true strategy you're probably already using is a stop and jot. As students are reading, build in a quick pause and ask them to write something down. It might be one question they have, one idea they're noticing, one connection they're making, or one part they think is important. Those stop and jot moments can make a big difference in rebuilding stamina because they give students a chance to pause and think about what they've read before moving on. Instead of just continuing through the text, they're stopping to notice something, question something, or make sense of something. It also gives every student an entry point into the discussion. They're not trying to come up with something on the spot. They already have an idea in front of them. That keeps more students engaged and it helps them stay connected to the reading longer. These strategies aren't new, but leaning into what students already know how to do can make the rebuilding process easier. But if you want to change things up a little, here are a few approaches you might want to try. One option is structured discussion prompts. All that means is we're giving students a clear way to start their thinking instead of expecting them to come up with it on their own. Instead of asking, "What did you think?" we give them something to respond to. You might ask students to start with, "A part of the text that stood out to me was," or "One thing I'm noticing is." You can also keep it really simple and focused on the text. Something like, "Find one line that stood out to you and be ready to explain why," or "Be ready to share one decision a character made and whether you agree with it." That kind of structure helps students get started. Because they have a starting point, it helps them stay in the conversation and stay connected to the text, which is what helps build stamina. Another strategy you might try is a claim it discussion. This is where you give students a few clear statements about the text and ask them to choose one to agree or disagree with. You might say something like, "The character made the right decision when," or "This conflict could have been handled differently," and then ask students to pick one and support it with evidence from the text. That structure gives students something specific to respond to right away. They're not trying to come up with an idea from scratch. They're reacting to something, which makes it easier to get started. And that's what helps more students participate. When students come together to talk, the conversation is more focused. They're going back into the text, looking for evidence, and explaining their thinking. You'll hear students say things like, "I disagree because when you look at what happened earlier," and now they're back in the text, making sense of it and staying engaged. And when students are staying engaged like that, that's what helps build stamina. The last approach we'll talk about today is building the answer together. This works especially well in small groups where more students have a chance to be involved. You pose one question to the class, and instead of calling on one student to answer it, each group works together to build a response. Within the group, one student might start with an idea, another adds a detail from the text, another brings in evidence, and another helps connect it back to the question. You can even prompt it by saying, "Make sure everyone in your group contributes at least one part to your answer," or "Be ready to share one complete response as a group." Now you have a complete answer, but more importantly, multiple students were involved in the thinking. It takes the pressure off any one student to have the perfect response. As we start to wrap up, I just want to come back to where we are right now in the school year. This is that time where it can start to feel like we're almost done. Students feel it. We feel it. There's a tendency to start counting down, to feel like we just need to get through these last couple of months. And sometimes that shows up as students checking out a little bit. Sometimes it shows up as us feeling like we've already done so much. What more can we really do right now? But this is actually a really important stretch of the year. Just like we do after winter break, this is a time where we need to reset, refocus, and rebuild routines and strengthen reading stamina. Not by doing more, not by overhauling everything, but by coming back to what we know works. By reestablishing routines, by giving students opportunities to think and talk about what they're reading, and by helping them stay connected to the text, even when their focus starts to slip. Because there's still so much growth that can happen between now and the end of the year. Before we go, I want to invite you to join us inside the Building Strong Confident Readers ELA group. We're continuing this conversation in our April training, where we'll be taking a deeper look at how to rebuild reading stamina through discussion and what that can look like in your class. We host live trainings on the third Thursday of each month, and for April, that will be on April 16th. If you'd like to join us or learn more, you can find the link in the show notes. It's our own private group. It's not on Facebook. So you'll just create a quick login and password and jump in anytime. Everything is right there when you log in, so you won't miss posts or updates. Inside the group, you'll also find free resources, past trainings, and recordings of our weekly Q&A sessions. So there's plenty there for you to explore whenever it works for you. I'd love to have you join us and be part of that conversation. And as always, thank you for being here and for the work you're doing every day to support your students. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me today. As a reminder, a new episode drops every first and third Tuesday, so be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Be sure to visit middleschoolcafe.com to find links to everything mentioned in today's show. Until next time.